Now, the individual written assignment, you could identify a situation where you've worked with another professional to support a child's learning. Can anyone think of one where that's happened? Give me a for instance.
I have a little blind girl at my nursery.
Okay.
And she has external professionals that come in and do exercises with her and have a routine each week.
Super. Now, do you mind if I just cross-question you on that for a bit, just to show? So, this child, she's got a visual impairment. Is it complete? Is it complete? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a child who has particular needs.
Yeah.
We're not going to write a special needs essay, but we are going to write about how you communicate with those different agencies. Do they, for example, and I have no idea what the visual impairment service is like at the moment, do they just arrive or do they make appointments?
They make appointments.
Okay, so how do you prepare for those meetings, or do you need to prepare for those meetings?
They come every week and they're with the little girl for about an hour and a half, 2 hours every week, and then every 3 months we have a review meeting that we have to prepare and do like a report on the little girl, and they send us their reports.
Now you might decide, I'm not going to touch that one with the barge pole, but let's face it, there's a pretty good case study there. On how effectively, we're not studying the child, we're studying how effectively groups communicate. Remind yourself of the title at all times. Do not, well, I'll show you the do not essay titles in a bit, but if you worked with another professional, be specific about the condition. You might, for example, want to put some case notes appropriately anonymised, really properly anonymised, because we're not dealing with the child here. And I did see one last year from another partner college where someone did a really, really good study and then put photocopies of letters to the mother, so we knew the mother's maiden name, the home telephone number, just make sure it's all properly anonymised if you're going to put any case notes in. Be specific about the condition. How can you help the child by working with this other professional? What are you doing? It's not just a passive thing, is it? When you're working with a child who's got some kind of additional need, a social need, a special need of some kind, educational need of some kind, it's not just you doing what you're told. It's about your voice as well, you as advocates for the child. This is the one where I could almost run screaming, because we say this all the time, oh, it's got to be more critical. What do we actually mean in this case? There's a very interesting theory that what we need to do when we're classroom practitioners and looking at our own practice is try and see it like strangers. Maybe what you need to do is you need to think of yourself as the Martian in the classroom for a little while. What on earth is happening with that child? Why on earth do they deal with that child like that? And some of it is very straightforward, but some of it may not be. But do avoid lengthy description. So do not put into your 1,500 words. For example, when Frida came to school the other day, she was soaking wet already, and I had said to Mother several times the week before that really what you needed proper wellies. Whether she got wellies or not, we don't need that kind of stuff. You need to keep it nice and precise. Keep us informed, but do not spend 1,500 words telling us the story. Now, one way of doing that is by making sure that your reading is thorough and is included, which is why this group presentation stuff should also inform everybody in the room. You should make sure that what you're doing actively informs what it is that everybody else needs to know about multi-professional working. You need to be able to take different insights to this as classroom practitioners. Legislation is important. Policies, procedures. Have a look, for example, at the stuff that has been being said recently about child protection, special needs. There's an awful lot out there. One place that I would go for this, I must admit, is if you go to the Department for Education website, they now have a speeches section. Go and see what the Secretary of State for Education is saying about multi-professional working. Go and see what the schools minister is saying. Go and see what it is that you can bring in which says this is where this is rooted in current government policy and practice. You might find, I don't think you will find particularly, but you might find why Every Child Matters was abandoned. You might find that Every Child Matters still occurs in various bits of language. Some of it has been very carefully excised. But equally, policies might not necessarily mean national policies. It might also be local policies. It might be about how children are referred in terms of procedures. That's the kind of thing that you might well want to refer to. Does that make sense as a set of sources for you? So it's got to have some research in it, but I think actually policies will root it in your everyday practice. If you are ordinary undergraduates writing something on multi-professional work didn't have that connection with the everyday practice in nurseries, I'd be saying, well, do it all on research, but you're not. Your voice is important here. Structure is key. You only have 1,500 words. Do start with an introduction. You'd be amazed how many people don't. Oh, I can leave that because I haven't got enough space. But write it at the end. It's the easiest way, particularly with a short piece of work. Say what you want to say, then write the conclusion, which is basically summing up what you've said, and then write this short essay intends to look at. Plonk, plonk, plonk. Okay, keep it nice and simple, but that's probably the best way. You write the body of the text, then you write the conclusion, and then you write the introduction. And that's the phrase I would suggest you use. Not necessarily word for word, though you can if you want to. If there are other things that you wish you could talk about, you know, the social aspects, for example, or if it's a medical thing, deeper into the medical condition that you're concerned with, or anything like that, it might be that this is outside the scope of this small study. That's academic language for back off markers. I only have 1,500 words. That's how you do it. Outside the scope of this small study will do you fine. Please do not write a rant about what's wrong with multi-professional working. So it's not why you can never get a speech and language therapist or anybody else. This is not an SALT beating up session. Do not write that essay about you can never get them when you want them. What are the barriers to professional communication would be the essay you'd write. Why my head teacher hasn't got a clue about special needs is also not the essay that I'd like you to write, even if it's true. Okay, the critical analysis essay, the more distant essay, if you like. What it is not is everything I know about special needs and wasn't able to get into the inclusion essay last year. It's not that essay either. Nor is it why Michael Gove hasn't got a clue, or any other person that you might want to moan about. It's not a moaning essay. So one of them, if you like, is the practical stuff. Don't do those essays. The other is don't do the essay that just fills in all the gaps from last year's inclusion essay. This is about something very specific. It is about multi-professional working. So equally, we do not want an essay on how anybody, doesn't really matter who, but I did think that picture of Michael Gove was particularly
provocative,
provocative, thought-provoking, whatever. It doesn't need to be any of those because I don't want that essay anyway. That shouldn't be what the essay is about. Okay, so there it is again. Each weighted at 50%. The group presentation, the individual written assignment, and the individual written assignment is either a case study or a more abstract piece, multi-agency working in the early years, a critical analysis. And I would suggest for that second one that you choose a focus, but with all of them, you must keep to your title, because you can't wander off too much. The other thing about having a small essay is that you're allowed to go 10% over, but that 10% is a smaller amount than it was for anybody else. So those longer essays that, you know, you think, oh, can I really manage 3,000 words? Actually, I think that 3,000 words in some ways is an easier task than 1,500. What you need to do is pick up a book that looks useful if you want, if you're not yet, if you haven't yet been to the library, and be prepared to tell people about what you think you will find useful. And then this one, the article by Rose, Joe Rose's article, Dilemmas of Interprofessional Collaboration, Can They Be Resolved? You can find Children and Society in the library, I think. You should be able also to find it online. You should be prepared to tell your peers from the abstract what use it might be when you come back together again.